Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to Aussie Fish Keeping. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys 6 tips for raising up guppy fry in your aquarium. So what I mean by this is actually raising the fry in the tank with the parents. So not taking them out when they're first born, but actually leaving in there and letting them sort of rear up alongside the parents. So doing this can be a little bit tricky just because obviously guppies do eat their fry. And if you have any other fish in the aquarium, they will also eat the guppy fry. So they definitely can be a little bit vulnerable in your aquarium, particularly when they are first born, when they're like absolutely tiny. Now, I will also say this won't only work for guppies, it'll work for pretty much any live bearers, so mollies, platies, swordtails, endlers. Although I find endlers usually don't eat their fry as much as the guppies, the mollies, and the platies, and the swordtails do. But yeah, I guess with that said, without any further ado, let's just jump into the first tip on our list. So the first tip on our list is a super useful one in my opinion, and that's adding surface agitation. So there is, I guess, a few reasons you want to do this. The main reason you should be adding surface agitation is because the fry will actually chill around the top of your surface. And if you have a still like surface, the parents can just look up, or any other fish in your aquarium can just look up, and it's a lot easier to locate like an individual fry. Whereas if you have the surface water moving and rippling, it's a lot harder for the parents to actually look up and see the fry and actually eat it. Along with that, the rippling in the surface may actually also sort of prevent the guppy fry from coming out, which is actually sort of what you want. And they'll actually hide in like structures or plants in your aquarium. So that's another way it actually prevents them from being eaten by the parents. How you can do this, you could just add in an extra air stone, you could use a sponge filter, or you could just adjust the flow of your like power head filter. So you do want to make sure that you're not adding like too much flow in the actual water where your guppy fry will just be being pushed around constantly. But just a little bit of that surface agitation is what you want, just to make sure all the top of your water is a little bit rippled. And yeah, that's going to help your guppy fry out heaps when it comes to surviving from the parents and other fish in the aquarium. But with that being said, adding surface agitation is definitely one thing you can do to help keep your guppy fry alive in your aquarium. Moving on to the next tip on our list, this one's pretty obvious, and that's adding plenty of plants and dense vegetation. So I do think it's pretty much essential to keep guppies with plants if you are wanting to breed them and keep the fry in the aquarium. So this tank back here is probably a perfect example of what you would want for a guppy breeding tank. So some sort of plant. I've just got this massive ball of algae, but that's absolutely perfect because it gives plenty of space for the little fry to go and hide. But some sort of big bushy ball, like maybe Java moss, subswaster foxtail, hornwort, alodia, any of those really bushy plants are great to throw in there just for your guppy fry to hide in. So you could either have the plants down the bottom like I've got here, or you could have the plants like this one at the top. You can even use big like root floating plants, so things like water lettuce, frog bit, red root floaters. Those roots, as they come down into the aquarium, will actually give your guppy somewhere to hide. And the final form of plants you can add in is these ones up here. So I've just got some philodendron xanadu. I find that grows pretty well, but a surprising one that grows super well is this, I think it's called a croton or something crow. So they'll just sort of have their root ball like hanging down, growing in the aquarium, and those roots will provide a little refuge for the fry to go ahead and hide in. But yeah, with that said, adding plants into your aquarium is definitely vital if you want to raise the guppy fry in your aquarium. Moving on to the next tip on our list, I mean, this one is a little bit obvious, and that's keeping the adults or the other fish in your aquarium well fed. So I'd recommend feeding your aquarium at least 2 times a day if you do have babies in there, and that's just going to stop the adults from getting hungry and going and finding the fry to eat. Obviously, most live bearers are pretty much always going to be hungry, but if you can try and fill them up as much as you can, that's always going to be best. And also, trying to not feed them live food is a great idea as well. So live food actually conditions them to eat things that are moving in your aquarium. And if you have plenty of baby fry in your aquarium, they're obviously going to be moving, and the parents may just think those are food and they'll go ahead and eat them. So while you have babies in there, just trying to feed things like flake food, pellets, all that sort of stuff is probably the best way to go, just until the fry get big enough to where they're not going to be eaten. But yeah, with that being said, that's a quick, simple tip, just making sure you keep your adults and other fish in your aquarium nice and well fed. Moving on to the next tip on our list, it's putting in fry protection. So what I mean by this is putting in things that only the fry can go into and the parents can't. So what you'll see a lot of the time, let me see if I can find one. Alright, so I couldn't actually find one, but you can use something like a little sieve or like a container with holes in it, just big enough for the fry to go in but not big enough for the parents to go in, and you can just sort of float those on the top of your aquarium so that the fry can go in there if they need to and get away from the parents, and it just gives them some open water to swim in where they're not going to be eaten by the adult fish. You could also throw in things like caves, rocks, wood, little crevices for them to go and hide in, but I do think that these little trays and little sieves are super beneficial at giving them somewhere to go ahead and hide and get away from the parents. So yeah, with that said, using fry protective areas is definitely a must if you're trying to raise these guys in your aquarium. Moving on to the next tip on our list, it's making sure you're feeding the fry in safe spaces throughout your aquarium. So if you notice all your fry are in the protective zone or in like the plants, you're going to want to get like a little pipette, which is one of these little guys, and what you can do is you can sort of just direct the food straight down to where the fry sorry about that weird angle. And by directing the food right to where the fry is, it means they don't have to come out and be vulnerable. They can sort of just dart in and out and eat the food. I'd also recommend trying to feed the fry at the same time you're feeding the parents, and that's just going to mean there's less chance of them colliding. So if you feed the fry in their little space and then you feed the parents just at the top of your aquarium, you shouldn't find that they interact really and they stay separate while they're eating. You also want to make sure you're only putting in a small amount of fry food, just because if you put in too much, once the parents are done eating, they're just going to go down and try and eat the fry food, and they'll possibly eat fry in that process. Yeah, making sure you're feeding at the same time, feeding in appropriate places, and not feeding too much to the fry is definitely a few things that you can do to help keep these guys thriving in your aquarium. And as for the final thing you can do to help keep fry safe in your aquarium, you can actually turn down your lighting. So obviously by turning down the lighting, your aquarium will be a lot more dull, which makes it a little bit more difficult for the adults or the other fish to actually spot your fry. That way they can freely swim around, you know, pick up food off the bottom and yeah, just be safe in your aquarium. If you're like me and have one of these cheap eBay lights, you can't actually turn the lighting down. So something you can do is just put plants like this on top, and that'll shade the aquarium a little bit, or you can put on floating plants or any other sort of plant that shades the top of your tank. But yeah, with that being said, turning down the lighting in your aquarium can be another great way to help protect your fry from the other fish. So that is actually going to bring us to the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope this video helps a few of you guys out. If you did enjoy today's video and you haven't done so already, please make sure to go down and subscribe. And while you're down there, smash the like button and comment your thoughts on today's video. I always love going down there and reading them all, and I try to reply back to as many comments as I can. Also, if you haven't done so already, make sure to go check out my website, aussiefishkeeping.com. I've got all sorts of fish, botanicals, and other aquarium products up there available. But yeah, with that said, thank you all so much for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you all in that next video.